This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Man, I have some fun for you today. This gentleman and I go way, way back. He was one of the two of the best comedy team ever to work the United States. He's worked worldwide, but in the United States, the comedy team of Mac and Jamie was the best in the business. They worked for me many times. They had their own TV show called Comedy Break. And ladies and gentlemen, we're just so blessed to have back on the podcast. You've heard him before. And here he is again, the one and only Jamie Alcroft.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Please, sit down, please. Thank you. My time's over. That's my time. Good night, everybody.
Hey, we just want to remind everybody there's a great one-on-one interview with you earlier in this podcast, and we did a great roundtable with a couple of your friends.
That was fun,
yeah. Neil and Bob Duback. And I wanted to have you back on because there was a couple unresolved questions I wanted to ask, but just as a foundation, I know that you've had some medical challenges, and today's like your 5-year anniversary. You went through a heart transplant, right?
I sure did. I actually, what I went through was congestive heart failure. I had a heart attack in 2005, and my heart was so damaged because I had the heart attack on an airplane. Perfect. Little Twilight Zone there. You know, imagine if you will, you're trapped. And I couldn't believe it. My 3 kids were on the flight with me. I was trying to deal with them and make sure they were okay. And I don't know how I got through it, but I got through that. And then once I got through that, I lived with a pacemaker for 12 years. And Mac and I still went out and did gigs. We did cruise ships and corporate gigs. And the pacemaker kept me going. But I got, I went the extra mile. I spent the extra bucks. I got the pacemaker with dual climate control, XM Sirius radio, XM Sirius, and OnStar. I got OnStar, Scott, because I'd locked myself out of my bathroom a couple times, my bathrobe a couple times, and called OnStar, and they immediately untied the cinch and got me out of the bathrobe. It was great.
Well, if you have to get a pacemaker, why not go all the way, right? I didn't know I didn't know the story about the plane. That would be frightening.
Yeah, I wrote all about it in the Tin Man Diaries, which is, I was in the hospital for 78 days, watching and waiting and dying at first. My heart was down to 5%. And so they had me in all kinds of drips and all kinds of bags hanging over. I think at one point I had 11 IV bags hanging over my bed. And they kept me going. And I'll tell you, everybody says that laughter is the best medicine, but whoever said that has never had a morphine drip. I guarantee you can't beat it.
Morphine
cannot beat it.
Is king. Okay.
Morphine, I'm coming, baby. And then, I made the best of it. I laughed. I wrote my book. My book actually started off as blogs called The Tin Man Diaries.
Yeah, I remember
I wrote
those.
this blog called The Tin Man Diary every day. God forbid I should miss a day. Everybody thought I'd croak. But
well, I remember reading those blogs, and everybody, the Tin Man Diaries is out there available on Amazon. Make sure to get it. It's a great book. And I remember reading the blogs, and you were telling this incredible real story of a comic / father / business person, just a human being going through this heart transplant situation. It was an incredible time, but we're 5 years later and you're still enjoying life.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. The whole community, the Hollywood community got behind me. I do a lot of video games, and one of the video games I do is called Gears of War. And on Gears of War, I play this guy named Victor Hoffman. There's a grizzled old Marine. He's a mean son of a bitch. He's happier than a baby and a barrel full of titties to be there. Don't get me wrong. But, he's that kind of guy. busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. And he had such a following that my producer of the video game reached out to the gamers and said, Victor Hoffman needs a new heart. Everybody, clap for Victor Hoffman, pray, send vibes, whatever, and so that was pretty cool. And then when I got out, they cast me again in Gears of War 6. Or maybe it was Gears of War 5. I don't know. Gears of War has been going on for 11 years. I've been doing that game 11 years.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
You've had such an amazing career. We talked about you and your partner, Mac Dryden, getting together down in Southern Florida and working
Key West.
Key West. That's
about as Southern Florida as you can get, buddy.
And working your way
up.
That's
Bubba country down there. That's comp country.
Exactly. And as a comedy team, you really went from Key West, Florida to New York to nationwide to your own comedy show, Comedy Break. What was it like working as a comedy team versus a solo act? Is it easier? Is it harder? I mean, Mac is a great writer. You're a great performer. You're a terrific team. But would you recommend it to somebody?
Hell yes. Yeah, it was great. You got to split the money, but you also split the laughs, and you split the writing, and you split the performing, and you do it. It's so collaborative. That's what I liked about it. I'm not a collaborative guy. I like to work with other people, except when I'm doing my silversmithing and I'm alone on the bench. But that's my alone time. But the rest of the time, I really like to be around other people and interacting with people. And with Mac, I was on the radio in Key West. I was the morning DJ in Key West, Florida for 2.5 years. And I got a note one day when I got off the air. It said, "You must be one of the funniest men in Key West." I'm the other one. And it was from Mac Dryden. And so I rode my bike up to his porch, and we sat on his balcony and talked about stuff that we wanted to do and accomplish. And we produced these shows in Key West called Vital Signs. We did Vital Signs, The Revenge of Vital Signs, The Son of Vital Signs. And every one of those shows, there were sketch shows about life in Key West and life in general. And they were hit shows. They were sold out. There were hundreds of bicycles in front of the theater on the nights that we were there. And we were voted by the Louis B. Carbonell Entertainment Writers Association of Florida. We were voted Best Comedy Act of 1979, I think it was. Wow. And I'm looking at the trophy right now as I speak. But we didn't know where it came from. We didn't know what the hell was going on. And we were working out at the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale. We drove 5 hours from Key West to Fort Lauderdale every weekend so that we could work out with these comics that had come down from New York to work in Fort Lauderdale. Comics like Mark Schiff, Jerry Seinfeld, Paul Reiser, Rick Overton, Carol Leifer, Lois Dengrove, you name it, the New York comics were there. So we were coming up from Key West. They were coming down from New York. We met in the middle in Fort Lauderdale. And they said, "Guys, you got to take this act to New York. There's nobody like you doing what you're doing anywhere in New York City, anywhere on the comedy scene for that matter." Because we weren't the fat guy and the short and the skinny guy and the short guy and the tall guy and the dumb guy and the smart guy. We were two intelligent men bantering on stage and having a little bit of war of wits with each other in front of an audience.
That's so... And, I'm just going to interrupt because I think that's so interesting because, Laurel and Hardy or some of the other comedy teams, Abbott and Costello, you're right. There was always some distinct difference. And yet with Mac and Jamie, you guys were really equal on stage. I mean, sometimes Mac did a little bit more of the music and you did more of the impressions and voices. But it was still two stand-up comics sharing a thread of material. That's a fascinating difference between some of the old school comedy teams. Yeah.
That we really try to differentiate ourselves that way. But here's some interesting thing, Scott. that kind of affected us negatively, because people like to know that Dick Smothers is going to be the smart one, and that Tommy Smothers is going to be the dumb one, and that Tommy, yet acting dumb but really smarter than Dick. It just went back and forth with those guys. But there was an expectation, and with Mac and Jamie, there was never an expectation, unfortunately. And an expectation does make an audience feel more comfortable and more accepting. Like Abbott and Costello. Abbott was obviously the straight man. No, the straight man. And Lou Costello was obviously the clown. And that gave people a comfort zone. People like to go into shows knowing what to expect. They really do. They buy tickets for Bill Maher because Bill Maher is Bill Maher, and they know that they're going to get a sound thrashing from a societal point of view. They just, audiences crave that. So that might have been a flaw, but what the hell? We were together for 35 years. We had a great career. We had a TV series. On our TV series, Comedy Break, we kind of went from 0 to 60 in 6 months. We went from Key West to having a William Morris agent and getting an offer for a TV series in 6 months.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy. And doing the Tonight Show. Doing the Tonight Show for the first time.
Yeah, no, it was an incredible career. And what's so funny is that I'm always telling people that everybody thinks of an overnight success. There's no such thing. And that even though it moved fast for you, you guys both had your feet or toes in comedy for years before you met. And then for years, you like you alluded to, your 30-year career, that's a long time to be entertaining audiences from TV to stage to, and even starting in theater. So, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Well, we started. Yeah.
And I think that what a lot of people would be interested in, and we touched on it briefly, is that when you're in a comedy team, you have double the expenses and you only get half the pay because everything is as a team. But you guys made that logistical aspect work because you're so close and because you were such a good team in working together. Just like on stage, you guys could set each other up perfectly.
Yeah, we really had fun with each other. On stage we had a lot. We never really hung out off stage, but on stage we would bring our day to the stage, basically.
Yeah.
When Mac and I were on the road, we'd be in Oklahoma City. I'd maybe go visit the Cowboy Museum or something, and he'd go do something, take a run or do something, and we never really spent the day together. And the first time we saw each other was maybe an hour before the show. We get together and talk about what we might want to do, talk about what happened to us that day. But we always save an ad lib for the stage. We'd always surprise each other. We tried to. We didn't do it. I mean, shit, when you were doing, 3 shows a night on a Saturday, you couldn't do it. But for the most part, we tried to bring something new
to kind of
surprise
make
the other
your
person.
partner
And I mean,
laugh. Yeah.
And I'm not saying go up in the middle of a bit. You stick through the bit. Now, here's an interesting thing that happened when we first got together. I had been on the radio, so I was used to ad-libbing and, playing around and just thinking of stuff and saying it. Mac hadn't had his only history in comedy, he was a cartoonist. And he made a Key West cartoon calendar for 5 or 6 years down there. And everybody had the Key West cartoon calendar in their house. It was hilarious. And that was his comedy outlet. But when we got together, we'd write these bits, and they were pretty strict bits. I mean, you really couldn't play around in the middle of it because it would set the other person off. Or you would get lost in the middle of the piece.
So different disciplines.
Right. But I would always ad-lib at the end of the pieces or throughout it. I loved to ad-lib. And it got to a point where Mac said, "You have to stop ad-libbing. If you don't stop ad-libbing, I'm going to quit because you're driving me crazy." I mean, this was the early Fort Lauderdale days. So I said, "Okay, for the next 6 months, I am not going to ad-lib. I promise." So for the next 6 months, we go up and we do our act, and I wouldn't ad-lib. And there were obvious holes in the act because of it. So it got to a point where Mac had to ad-lib to just sustain the momentum of the act. And he got to be a great ad-libber.
Well,
as I knew he would.
Also, I think, again, the magic of the collusion between you two, you were able to help him find his ad-libbing voice and his position on stage. And he probably brought a little conformity to you to sticking to a strict. I got to tell you, I was a huge fan of Mac and Jamie. We had you at the club dozens of times. You guys always entertain the audience and always a lot of fun. Now let's fast forward, because the comedy team stuff was really interesting. But since you guys retired, Mac and Jamie, although you did some corporates and some special events kind of stringing along for years, but you transitioned into kind of a solo career. You were doing the video games. You're a silversmith. You have your great collection of silver art and jewelry. That where can people find that?
Silver by Jamie.
Silver by Jamie. Well, that's not hard. Silverbijamie.com. Folks, you should check out his silver work. It's amazing. But Jamie, did you find it difficult to transition to being, for 30 years immersed in the Mac and Jamie experience and then kind of going solo? Now, I know your heart attack and your medical made you transition your life a bit, but going to your voice work on video games and your silver work and your book, the Tin Man Diaries, that's kind of a different world from the comedy team. Was that transition kind of forced on you and you had to find a way, or was it kind of a fun challenge and an adventure?
Well, Mac and I both knew that it was over when it was over. We were really only doing it for the money. It wasn't much fun anymore. Mac and I had a contract together. Our first gig, first time at Fort Lauderdale, going up on stage, I took a $1 bill and I ripped it in half. And I gave him one half and I kept the other. And then when we did our first TV show, Tom Snyder, The Late Show with Tom Snyder, something like that. It was the Tom Snyder. Yeah, remember? I took a $5 bill and I ripped it in half. I gave him half and I kept half. And then when we signed to William Morris, he took a $10 bill, ripped it in half, and gave it the other half to me. So that was our contract all the way through. I think by the time we got to the TV series, we had ripped a $100 bill in half.
Well, that's a good contract right there.
And that was our contract, yeah. But the transition was difficult. I can't pretend that it wasn't, because I did miss performing, and I did start to do some solo stuff after I recuperated from my transplant. I just, I was getting big laughs and I was doing okay, but I thought, what am I doing this for? What's the point?
Yeah. So you were getting, I know as a creative person, because I'm there with you, that there's an itch to get on stage and to perform because of that adrenaline you get from the audience. But obviously going from a comedy team where you have a foundation of the entertainment, to a solo, it had to be unique and different. But you're a funny guy.
So I had done solo before those guys.
Okay.
I had done stand-up in Key West when I was on the radio. I hosted all the Buffett concerts and Bonnie Raitt concerts and Fantasy Fest. And
so you didn't have to. Right, you're not learning from scratch. You're just retooling.
No. Yes, exactly. And I did it. I think I went up on stage 3 or 4 times, and I just thought, no big deal. Yeah. what am I doing this for? And honestly, it's really nice to stay home on a Friday and a Saturday night, or
It
to
is
even
different,
go
isn't
out to somebody else's show on a Friday or Saturday night. Wow, what a trip that is! And then now I'm so involved. I'm writing a new TV show. I've got I'm writing a sitcom, and I've got a TV show in development that involves comics and cooking. That's all I can say. I've got a new book I'm working on, and I just got and my silversmithing, my silver work. I hardly have time to get to the bench because now I'm trying to launch in comedy clubs what I want to call Pink Dot Night. And I'm trying to get comedy club owners to cooperate with me on this and to offer a special deal for people who have a donor spot on their license. If you have that pink dot on your license, you should be able to get in for free to a comedy club one night a month, say first Wednesday of every month is Pink Dot Night. And I would like to eventually get this national with every comedy club across the country, because there is a real dearth of organs that are unavailable. I mean, 20 people a day die because the organs they need aren't available. I was waiting for my heart and my liver. If I hadn't gotten a donor, if some guy who had filled out their donor card hadn't gotten on his motorcycle that night, God bless him. I thank him every day. But he had the compassion and the insight to fill out that donor card and to get that pink spot on his license. And you know something? Everybody wants to be remembered for something. He'll always be remembered for that.
Wow.
He'll always have a legacy. Everybody wants to leave something behind to make this earth a better place. Well, you can make this earth a better place by becoming a donor, because it is such a waste to put those beautiful lungs and those beautiful hearts and those beautiful eyes in the ground to rot or in a furnace to burn. I'm sorry to be so literal about this, but it is a crisis in America.
Well,
how many people are dying every day? So don't you think getting comedy clubs to sponsor a Pink Dot Night or something to raise awareness in this country?
I think it's an amazing idea, and I think everybody in the listening audience needs to realize that being an organ donator, I have a pink dot on my license. I think it's important to be.
Well, then you get in for free.
You got to be willing to understand that our bodies are just vessels for our souls, and that our souls will go on to wherever you believe they go on to, but our bodies have value to other people, and why not share that? And I think your Pink Dot program, if I still owned my club, I would have signed up immediately. I think it's a great opportunity for the clubs to show their humanity. I think it's a great way to get butts in the seats. And we need an awareness, because you can get those MCs to mention it on stage. We need an awareness of the Pink Dot program. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Jamie. Thank you. That is a great legacy for you to be sharing and promoting and getting out there. I think that's great.
Well, that's the thing you do, Scott. You try to make a difference. I've got a second chance at life. And if I don't make a difference, I made a difference with my first chance. I have 3 beautiful, wonderful children, and I have a wonderful, wonderful wife, and we've made a great life together. But this is my second chance to make a difference in other people's lives. Maybe I made a difference in other people's lives by making them laugh, helping them forget their troubles. But I want to do more now. I want to raise awareness in this country. I just can't believe, with everything else that's going on, I'm throwing something else against the wall, but here I go. I go.
But Jamie, I think that's admirable. So ladies and gentlemen, he is promoting the Pink Dot program. He's got his silversmithing you can find online and see his great artwork. He's got his
silverbymajamie.com.
He's got his book out there, The Tin Man Diaries. He's working on video games now. I know it's a little bit of a secret. Neil and you are working on this TV program. You said you're working on 2 TV projects as a writer?
Neil and I have 2 projects going now. Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's got to be exciting as well. And as anybody in show business knows, it's a long shot. You work on something, it may get picked up, it may not. But I think it's great, Jamie, that for all you've been through and all that you have to offer, that you're keeping your creative juices going by working on these projects for television as well, on top of all the other stuff. That's really got to keep you busy and kind of fun for you, right?
It's a lot of fun. And what the hell keeps me off the stage?
Well, you're always funny on stage, but I get the point. I'm in my semi-retired state, and, I don't get on stage. I don't get those audience accolades that keep us going, get us the endorphins and the everything happening for us. But I find my release through this podcast and other projects, and I think that it's amazing that in your, celebrating 5 years of your new life, that you're not only still have your toes in show business, but you're giving back through the Pink Dot program. Jamie, that's great. And we want everybody in the audience to mention to their local comedy club that this would be a great idea for them to do.
Yeah, that would be great. I hope you can do that.
Well,
audiences, you can contact me through silverbymajamie.com if you get any leads on those comedy clubs, if anybody's interested. I'm going after the comedy clubs in LA right now, and I haven't really gotten the response that I wanted, but I haven't hit every comedy club yet.
Right. And if we get it out to a national audience like we are on this podcast, we'll get all the listeners to be your advocates, to go to their local clubs and talk to them about organ donation and the Pink Dot program. And Jamie, maybe by next year at this time, it'll be something that's happening and giving back. And I think that that's a great platform for you to be promoting.
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, Jamie, thanks for joining us on the podcast. We're so excited about everything you're doing. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear him on video games. Comedy Break can still be seen on your local computer Googler. Just go to Comedy Break TV show. It's a few decades old, but very, very funny. You're available on my podcast, and we want to reiterate silverbymajamie.com. Check out his silversmithing. Go get his book, The Tin Man Diaries. It's available on Amazon. And hey, everybody out there, let's be missionaries for this great program for organ donation. Think pink. All right, Jamie.
You're colorblind. I didn't realize you were colorblind. It's hard to tell over the phone.
Will you keep us informed on all your projects? And thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for the time, Scott.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another great show. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.